Welcome to the next episode of Myths and Stories. Tonight we got kind of a special one for you. We're going to see if we can beat Savathun at her own game because she likes a good mind game, a good how can I screw with a guardian's head for the fun of it, because she is, after all, the god of cunning and deceit and tomfuckery. So we're going to be diving into, for those of you that don't know, since the Witch Queen campaign launch, there has been a series of Altar of Reflections that have come out. There's 4 of them, and in those altars, you take a piece of you take something, you take some sort of material thing to this altar, and you place it on the altar, and using the power of darkness, you activate deep sight on it, and it reveals things about that piece. Well, in the last in 4 of them, Savathun has come in and said, "Well, let's play a game," and she calls this game 2 Truths and 2 Lies. So she gives you four sentences, 4 statements, and then leaves it up to you to decide. What Myth has found out is that she does, after the first couple of times you do these, she starts giving you answers, but she doesn't give any 2 guardians the same answer. So, yeah, she's kind of a turd.
Just a bit.
Yeah. So the way we're going to do it tonight is Myth was kind enough to type all this up for me. So I'm going to start it off. I'm going to read him. We're going to do this one altar at a time, and I'm going to read him the 4 sentences that are given in an altar, and we'll devote a little bit of time to them. Try to break down why we think one of them's true, one of them's false, or see if we can actually figure out, like, if we have any definitive ideas of how each of them are true or false. And hopefully it'll make sense, and hopefully we haven't confused ourselves by the end of this. So we'll start with the first one. The first one that Myth wrote down for me was Altar of Reflection, Pact, P-A-C-T. And the 4 sentences are as thus: Osiris is dead. Savathun is dead. The witness birthed the darkness. And in the end, your destiny lies outside the solar system. So Myth.
Okay.
Osiris is dead.
So I see Osiris is dead as false.
And why is that?
So there's a couple of reasons here. The first one, the most obvious one, being that the storyline, the main narrative, tells us that Osiris is currently in a comatose state, being looked after by Saint 14. Now, Savathun being who she is, I think she would very much make the distinction between dead and not conscious. Yeah, I
think you're right.
Even if someone's in a vegetable state, they're technically alive, and I think that would be how Savathun would define, those kinds of states. Now, I do know that there is a Martian Missives lore card that is supposedly from Keitel, talking about how she found her cabal found the body of the real Osiris, and that could be a reason why some people may think Osiris is dead is a truth. However,
well, you know me, I got to hear this lore card.
Yeah, so this will be the lore card from Keitel's point of view. She's sending a message to us, our guardian. And then I'll read another lore card that suggests that not all is as it seems in this message. But so this is Martian Missives, Pt.1, and it goes like this. Degenerate fate casts us together once more, guardian. How I have missed the thrill of pitting my cabal against your unyielding tide of light bearers, truce or no. But it is in the spirit of Zavala's newfound truce that I offer you news delivered by my Cabal scouts. My forces recently recovered the remains of a human male on Nessus, vivisected almost beyond recognition using hive technique and tools. Our science identifies the unfortunate as your warden of the infinite forest, Osiris. While I will not divulge the details of our confirmation methodologies, rest assured they are thorough and accurate. This news no doubt will shock you, given that you are in possession of another Osiris still clinging to life. But it is not him. Despite the confirmation of his identity performed by Ikora Ray, her admiration of her old mentor has already clouded her ability to recognize an impostor. It appears it has happened again. It is not custom among the Cabal to allow even a respected leader a third chance to fail their people. I don't know what purpose the Witch Queen could have in giving you a comatose husk wearing your dead ally's face, or what threat he may become. A listening device, a future mole, a living bomb? But understand this. When Savathun brought Shivu Arath to my doorstep, she did so wearing the mask of a trusted advisor. What you hold in your tower is no treasure, and I have faith in you among your kind to handle this problem as a Cabal would. So Keitel,
well, now I don't think he's dead.
Keitel sending us a message, supposedly Keitel sending us a message saying, "Hey, we found the real body of Osiris."
You can't throw in supposedly Keitel. That's just all right, fine.
Saying she has found the real body of Osiris, and what we have in our tower is a mole or a living bomb or something that's going to give Savathun an advantage. Is not actually Osiris. However,
I do like that idea. I like that idea that there could possibly be. So my thought on this, like, Osiris. Now, granted, his reflections were clearly not him, but while he was in the Infinite Forest, he did do a lot of stuff with reflections and creating copies of himself. And just like at the Battle of the Seven Fronts, it's described as he appeared as being in multiple places at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious if one of his reflections could have gained any type of corporeal form and retained that corporeal form, and that's what either we have in the tower or it was found by Keitel. I think that could be a neat idea there. That again, no type of supporting evidence for that, but I think that would be a neat possibility there, as well as the idea of having Osiris in the tower as a mole or a living bomb. Like, he's comatose. Like, we haven't been able to talk to him ever since hell, technically before the shoot. When was the last time we talked to him?
It would have been before Beyond Light.
Yeah. So sometime in Shadowkeep would have been the last time we had any type of interaction with him. Yeah. Which would have been what, the Sundial?
Yeah, I guess so. Sundial would have been any direct interaction with him. We know that he interacted with presumably a pyramid ship, as well as Queen Mara to some degree, because it's implied that he's the one that planted the seed that grew into the Tree of Silver Wings during Season of Arrivals.
Right.
But beyond that, yeah, we don't know.
We haven't been able to talk to Osiris because the whole time, all through Beyond Light, and we talked about this before, he was possessed by Savathun, and we know this happened before Beyond Light because of which one is it? The bow, the lore tap on the bow.
I think it's the bow. I'd have to look.
Wolf Tone Draw.
I think it's.
I can't. It's one of the weapons. I think it's the bow, the Wolf Tone Draw bow that talks about how, like, Savathun is speaking, or there's a voice coming out as Osiris, but it's not his. It's all inside Osiris's head, and he's being pushed out of his own head. And the first thing that happens is Uldren helping him up off his feet is the first thing that he can see that isn't him doing something.
Yeah.
So
so it is wolf tone draw. It's talking about the slithering dark cold against his face. He cannot speak, cannot breathe. Reaches for Sagira, but then I remember. Someone, the awoken prince, helps me to my feet, but still I struggle in the dark, and now she is standing, thanking him, using my voice. So,
yep.
That very much
so
implies...
literally since literally since the beginning of Shadowkeep.
Yep.
We've been talking to Savathun the entire time, and Osiris can watch all of this play out, but he has no control over anything that's happening there.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily seem that he's always watching. It's kind of like he's drifting in and out of consciousness.
Yeah.
But so like sometimes he becomes aware of what's going on, and then he kind of drifts back into the background, and then he becomes aware enough to notice another scene, and then drifts back into the background, kind of thing.
And I'm curious if that's like a byproduct of the of Savathun's level of because she draws her power off of deceit and deception, and there's a scene described as him walking through the streets and like just nobody's even paying attention to him, and that's the fact that nobody's paying attention to him is feeding Savathun, because it's that deceitfulness, it's that unknown that's happening there. So it to me, as far as so far, it could be Osiris that is dead. It could be a cadaver of Osiris. It could be nothing. What did I say? Cadaver? Okay, Margie's correcting me. My wife's correcting me. She's reminding me that it's a cadaver, not a cadaver. It's a cadaver, not a cadaver. Yeah. So suck it, English language. Take that.
So there's another card here though that I think offers some more perspective on the title card. And that is also from Martian Missives. This one is Martian Missives Eris 2. And this one has more in it, but the relevant bit that I've pulled out is Eris telling us this. You should be aware that Savathun took a particular interest in you, and I have uncovered her infiltration of hidden communication channels. It's likely she is responsible for one or more false missives in an attempt to undermine your loyalties or redirect your goals. So Eris seems to be implying
so now
that
I think that
previous missives were manipulated or outright forged by Savathun to try and get us to focus on something else, or to sow unrest. Because I mean, even in the one about Osiris, not only is it telling us like, hey, the Osiris you have is dangerous, it's also telling us that like Ikora has failed her job. Even the Cabal do not allow a respected leader a third chance at failing their people. So sowing dissent and casting doubt on this body of Osiris that we have in the tower would be very Savathun.
Well, now I don't know.
Also, the fact
now
that
I think
Kaido never mentions it in any of her trips to the tower. So
now there's okay. I never thought of that point, but that to me would be a definitive thing saying, yeah, this could absolutely have been because I mean, she would have said something, right? Like she is literally,
right.
We are on complete speaking terms. I mean, we had the whole scene with Crow and Saladin. We've had scenes with Zavala, and I mean, we've had multiple scenes with her in the hangar. She would have said something. She'd have been like, if we approached her and said, "Hey, we have the body of Osiris over here," and she's like, "Okay, cool," or she would have been like, "No, I sent you a message saying that we found a body," and in which case, then that would be. But the fact that because you said the Cabal message from Keitel talked about the body being very vivisected by hive magic and mechanisms. So I mean, we're talking like a dissected body that's been just completely torn apart on a scientific level, which is weird to think for the hive to have a science. Like who's their Ministry of Science? Like they're just some wizard. Like, hey, I think this is how this shit works. And some knight's like, oh, he's a wizard. He's got to know what he's talking about. Yeah.
I mean,
that is how that works.
That's how they figured out oversouls, right? It was just
Get the fuck out of it. That's literally how they did it.
Messing with shit.
That's literally how they did it. Damn it. Damn it. That's shit. When you prove yourself right.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think we can pretty definitively say that Osiris is dead is false.
Okay, I will agree with that. I think because we have a physical body in the tower that is Osiris, even if you wanted to be like, well, from this point of view, Osiris is dead because he's in a coma, whatever. I think that first
biologically
one is false as well.
He is alive, whether he's in a vegetable state or comatose or whatever. And I think that is the definition Savathun would use. So I think he is still technically alive, making that first statement false.
The first statement false.
Yep.
So the next one is Savathun is dead.
This one seems like a pretty obvious true with a caveat. So that being she's dead for now.
For now. Right. Like that's the thing, right? Like we killed the body that is Savathun at the end of the campaign. Like when you get to the end of campaign and you fight that big awesome battle, which oh my god, can we just take a second and say how awesome that battle is on like Legend when you're trying to solo it?
It's
holy crap.
Great,
yeah. You want to talk about Bungie stepping up their game. This final battle for a campaign was freaking amazing. So we kill her at the end, and then we see, of course, Amaru pop out, start to res her, look down at her, look at us, and kind of give us that like, fuck you look that the darkness would give us.
Mm-hmm.
And then and it's weird that I would say that the darkness would give us, because Amaru is a ghost. He is of the light.
Yeah, but he's not a very nice ghost by
I'll give you that.
The information that we have been told.
He's a dick, but he is of the light. So it's interesting to me to think of him as like having this like darkness undertone, like this darkness smirk.
I mean, light does not mean good and dark does not mean evil.
Very much so. We figured that out last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, that's our last couple of episodes. So yeah, Savathun is dead. I think this is a false. I think in its base form, because like with that caveat, right? That's where we said it's true. But since that caveat isn't stated, I think that the sentence is false.
Well, sure. We may have to agree to disagree. I think, again, Savathun would be very deliberate about her wording. And,
yes,
she is dead, biologically speaking. She has the opportunity to be resurrected, sure. But technically, so does any dead body out there a ghost could find and pick. So
that's what I was about to say. Technically, we as the Guardian are dead, and technically Osiris is dead.
Well,
yeah, now what, sucker?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I would say that
I told you guys that we would confuse the crap out of ourselves, and we are not even 20 minutes in, and we have already confused the crap out of ourselves.
I would argue that after resurrection, you're alive, because even if your ghost dies, in the sense of Osiris and Segura, or we've seen other ghostless guardians, like the person keeps on living, a mortal life, but they keep on living after the death of their ghost. So like, it's not necessarily that the light is keeping them alive or sustaining something that is dead. the light is returned something that was dead to the living. I guess is how I'm viewing it.
Sure.
You know,
I can agree with that. I can definitely be on board with that.
so to me,
I just thought it was funny to throw that one little bit of doubt, like, well, technically
it's an
every Guardian's
idea,
dead.
Yeah. I think every Guardian was dead, not necessarily is dead.
Yeah.
At least as I'm interpreting it. So to me, we have one false and one true. Now, if you're saying false and false, then you're also saying the last two are true.
Exactly. So we'll do the last two now. So the third one is the witness birthed the darkness. I think that is 100% true. I think and here's where I'm going with this. I'm thinking that the darkness is the darkness, the power, the dark, the power. Yeah. I think the witness is the only person, and I say person, the only entity in this universe, in this reality, that was able to craft the darkness as a power and gift it out freely. So to me, that statement is true because the opposite of it is true. The winnower, which we have theorized and pretty definitively concluded, though still don't have any hard evidence, the traveler is the witness, and the witness joined the game in order to bring paracausal powers in the form of the light.
Hold on.
And the darkness.
The traveler is the gardener, I assume, is what you meant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What did I say?
You said the traveler was the witness, and we don't need to make this more confusing.
Yeah, no need to get this more confusing. No, the traveler is the gardener, and the gardener joined the game to change the rules by giving paracausal abilities or paracausal powers to the players of the game in the form of the light, like we discussed in the last few episodes. The witness, on the other hand, did the same thing, but in the opposite aspect, to try to keep the universe moving in the same direction that it should and that it's supposed to by the original rules of the original Flower game, and therefore birthed darkness and was able to gift darkness out. That's my whole theory on why the third statement, the witness birthed the darkness, is true.
Now, I generally agree with that. That if we are under the assumption the witness is the winnower, which we are operating under that assumption based on the
absolutely
last 3 episodes of
everything points to
that. However, I have a devil's advocate viewpoint.
Don't you freaking! If we come out at the end of this and all 4 of these are true and false, that we haven't solved anything.
Well, then we've done exactly what Savathun wanted.
Oh shit! Oh, so, that is brilliant.
Isn't that fun? But
well,
so
shit.
This just comes down to, is the darkness an equal and opposite force of paracausality but separate from the light, or is paracausality the force and light and dark are just opposite ends of that spectrum?
I'm taking your theory a bit. I've done this before. I'm doing it again. I'm taking away your theorizing ability. You are no longer allowed to theorize anything because it is too awesome.
Well, I'm going to finish this one either way, so nah.
Okay.
So we know that the only one that specifically wanted to change the game and implement a new rule was the gardener.
Correct.
Now, I could absolutely believe and did believe the thought that the gardener brought in paracausality of the light and the winnower brought into the game paracausality of the dark. However, we could also potentially interpret that as the gardener brought paracausality into the game, full stop. And the gardener happens to have an affiliation towards the light side of paracausality, and the winnower happens to have an affiliation with the dark side of paracausality, but it was all brought into the game by the gardener changing the rules.
Damn it.
I could see it going either way, honestly.
Okay, so far out of all three of these first three sentences, we have seen them go both ways. So we suck at this.
So,
or Savathun is just the best at this. I don't know.
That being said, I'm pretty confident that Osiris is dead is false. Savathun is dead is true.
Okay.
The witness birthed the darkness. I'm leaning more towards true, as fun as the other theory is. So the last one,
the final sentence, in the end, your destiny lies outside this solar system. I don't know what to make of this.
This is such an open-ended statement that you could almost spin it into anything.
Literally, you could spin it into both at the same time, right? Like, what is this sentence?
So, and this is kind of the tough one, because you almost have to decide if this one's true or false based on your decisions of the other three.
Right.
So for me, following my logic of, true, false, true, this one would land on false.
And then for me, Osiris is dead, Savathun is dead. I see those as false. The witness birthed the darkness is true. So for me, the last one would be seen as true.
Yep.
So let's why in your mind do you think that the final sentence is false?
So
other than just going with the idea of two of these are truth and two of these are false, so this is what I'm left with.
Yeah. So again, it just goes back to how broad it is. So in the end, your destiny lies outside this solar system. Now, removing my want for an intergalactic Destiny game out of the equation, because that would be cool.
Yes.
Removing that from the equation and just thinking about it from a logical standpoint as much as I can. Everything that is important to the Destiny universe has happened in the Sol system.
Right.
Or everything important that we have dealt with.
Right, because it has dealt with humanity, and the one thing unique to the Sol system is humanity.
Yeah. And I think the final confrontation between, the conclusion of the light and dark saga in the final shape is going to happen in the Sol system.
Okay.
And I personally subscribe to the theory that maybe our character doesn't live to Destiny 3 or whatever comes after.
Sure.
And in that case, the character that Savathun is speaking to doesn't have a destiny, quote unquote, outside of the solar system.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of my rough thinking around why that might be false.
So for me, I'm thinking of this in a fourth wall sense. In the end, your destiny lies outside this solar system. I'm thinking like either A, we are going to literally jump solar systems, or we're going to jump multiverses or something. Or if we look at this fourth wall, like she's talking to us, the player, like saying, you as the player, your destiny lies outside this video game, this solar system video game. So that to me would be kind of a neat, haha, I see what you did there with your words and fancy stuff. Yeah, no, but
and we know that she has done fourth wall breaks before.
She's done, and so have the Ahamkara. The Ahamkara know they're in a video game and they want to get out. So she wouldn't be the first entity in this video game wanting out of the video game.
Yep.
That being said, in the end, your destiny lies outside this solar system. I think that there are multiple points of that could be true and could be false. So in the end, could be a true or false, in the end of what? In the end of your lifespan, in the end of what? Your destiny what is our destiny? Do we even know what our destiny is? Are we meant to be soldiers of the light, fighting an endless battle across the universe and across time and across everything to prove the gardener right, or to prove the winnower right, or to prove one or the other wrong? Outside this solar system. Well, that could mean tons of things. That could mean outside the solar system. That could imply outside this galaxy. That could imply outside the universe. That could imply a lot of things. So for me, this sentence is so open-ended. I don't know what to think of it truly. So my only reasoning for thinking that this is a true thing is because of my reasoning on the other three. So I'm also kind of with you on this idea of this interstellar, intergalactic destiny. I think that would be fucking awesome.
Absolutely.
Like, what if we went to Vega, right? Like, that'd be super cool. Jodie Foster would be there with what's his name? Yeah, my wife can't even think of the guy's name. Anyway, for any of those who like Contact, that was that reference. You're welcome. So I mean, that would be super neat, right? Like, if that was so. But at the end of the day, this is what we come up with. Myth. 4 sentences.
So Osiris is dead. False. Savathun is dead.
Okay.
True. The witness birthed the darkness. True. In the end, your destiny lies outside the solar system. False. For me.
And for me, Osiris is dead. Savathun is dead. Both those are false. And the witness birthed the darkness, and in the end, the destiny lies outside the solar system. Both those are true. Next altar. Good thing we were able to confuse the crap out of ourselves and not give you, the listener, any answers. Sucks to suck. No. So the next one is altar of reflection, choice. And the 4 sentences are these. The traveler will leave. The traveler will fall. The traveler is not the only one of its kind, and the hive are not the last to be chosen by the light. So myth. Sentence number 1. The traveler will leave.
I see that as false.
And why?
Because if it was going to, it would have already.
I think you're right on that.
In my opinion. And the witness implies at the end of the Witch Queen campaign in that cinematic that, like, this is the final confrontation. The witness is coming to the traveler, and they're, this is it. This is the conclusion. We know, and we also know that from out of game context of the Joe Blackburn and others on the Destiny dev team saying that, like, the conclusion of the Light and Dark saga is the final shape expansion.
Yep.
So it doesn't make sense for the traveler to peace out now.
True.
So I see that as
and
false.
this is kind of like, to me, I look at the soul system as being the traveler's last stand, right? Like, everything about the fight of the darkness versus, well, not the darkness, the witness versus the traveler, to me, has led up to this point, right? Like, the traveler has obviously been to other systems, has been trying to find a way to build an army, but not directly influence that army. Like, it's been gifting light. We're assuming that we as the Guardians are not the first ones to be gifted the light. Obviously, the Hive have the light now, like, as a gift. Like, everything about the Hive, all of their ghosts were like, this wasn't a trick by Savathun. Like, the Lucent Brood were gifted the light. Full stop.
Yep.
Ghosts chose them. This was not a Savathun, looking into necromancy and looking into resurrection and whatever. No, she died. Light was gifted to her by Edgelord Imaru. And thus all the other Edgelord Ghost and Edgelord Finch and all these other ghosts that are like, oh, look, hive parts. Oh, man, this looks cool as a ghost shell. Dude, you look awesome. Yeah, no, that's That's what I think in my head happened there. So I don't. The traveler have been through others. The traveler has been through other systems before, and has actively done things. Right? We looked at the what was the system most recently previous to this that had the weapon. I'm drawing a complete blank here.
Harmony, yes. Yep.
Yes.
It was
in the Harmony system.
The gift mast was this
gift
weapon
mast,
that was powered by a black hole, I think.
Yep. Yep. And had a bunch of science terms that we had to Google.
Yeah.
Because if Bungie's nothing, they're not thorough, right? Like they are very thorough in what they're going to try to do. So the traveler has taken an active part in these different systems, and I'm presuming the Ecumene as well. I don't know that it's ever directly stated.
But
I'm assuming
I'd have to go back to the Book of Sorrow stuff. I know for sure the Ammonite, who were the race on one of the moons around Fundament. Because the traveler was hanging out with them. And the Leviathan was helping protect them. I believe the Ecumene as well. I'm pretty sure it references them having paracausal weaponry at the very least, which would imply to me that they had some kind of contact with paracausality.
Right. And if it wasn't the darkness, the only other paracausality is the light. So therefore, has to be if it isn't one, it has to be the other. The only two paracausal powers in the Destiny universe are light and dark. And if something has some sort of paracausal something and it doesn't have one, it has to have the other. Full stop.
Yeah. Or at least that is what we have seen thus far.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much every species that the Hive have came into contact with in Books of Sorrow. I think either it's directly stated or implied had some interactions with the Traveler at one point or another. And the Hive were essentially chasing the Traveler.
Yeah.
And throughout
and
their
Savathun
conquest.
states as much. Like, when at the scene where she dies in front of the Traveler, she's like, I have chased you as a collector, as a I can't remember all what she describes it as, but she's been chasing, she and the rest of the Hive in turn have been chasing this thing across forever.
Yeah.
Eternity. They've been chasing it across the universe for eternity. Or at least the last billion years. So for me, the Traveler will leave. I think you're right. I think this is a final stand thing. I think this is this is where the Traveler is going to stop. This is where the Traveler has stopped. So yeah, I think that is a false. So the next one, Traveler will fall.
So this one,
myth,
I think is true. However,
you and your caveats, man. We can't keep doing this. Well, sort of, kind of. Definitive answers, myth. We gotta have definitivity.
I'm trying to think about how Savathun would think about this when she's wording these.
See,
and
that's
I think
what
whenever
gets me
she
with
has
all of
the
these.
opportunity, she's being very literal.
I think so. I think because she is stating this as a game and she wants to play a game, like I think you're right. I think if we look at it from that sense of her words are very exact and literal.
Yeah.
So
are very carefully chosen. Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
There's the obvious here. The next expansion is called Lightfall. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
However, I think both the name of that expansion as well as this statement, the Traveler will fall, are maybe playing on our expectations a little bit. I think perhaps the Traveler will literally fall. Not necessarily fall as in defeated or fall as in killed, but fall
just
as
like
in fall out
fall.
of the sky.
Yeah. Like land.
No longer be its floating orb self, which that might be another thing. If there is a entity inside of the traveler, as we've kind of talked about before. There was concept art of the traveler being a humanoid figure. There's been talk of the traveler being a her, where Ghost assigned it a female persuasion. It's possible that the traveler falling might literally be the shedding of that giant round shell in some fashion.
Ooh.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that the traveler is defeated per se. However that plays out, I think this one is going to be true. Just more a gut feeling, I guess, than anything.
I'm kind of on the same lines of you with this one. The one point of blatantly obvious in your face evidence that I look at is the next expansion is called Lightfall.
Yeah.
The traveler is of the light. Now that could be looked at as, Lightfall of we lose the force, the light, and not necessarily the affiliation of the light, right? Like that's
true. Yeah.
It's kind of that like wishy-washy area. But I think if we take Savathun at her word, if we look at it and we say and we're saying that she is choosing her words very carefully and very exactly, the traveler will fall, I think is a truth because of the kind of the same idea you're talking about, where like the traveler itself is just the shell and whatever's inside. Now she could be talking about whatever's inside. I am under the assumption that she, as well as everybody else in the Destiny universe, except for the Witness, doesn't know what's inside the Traveler. Like it's been theorized what's been inside the Traveler.
I assume so.
But yeah, nobody's ever, hey, here's a picture from the inside of the Traveler. Yeah, this is me and concept art over here hanging out, throwing deuces, right? Like no, that's not. Nobody's ever been able to do that. So I think the Traveler will fall is a truth as well. So that brings us to number 3. The Traveler is not the only one of its kind. This is an interesting one.
I've seen theories, and I don't necessarily disagree with them, that there's a whole fleet of travelers out there the same way there's a whole fleet of pyramid ships. However, in the context of these, 2 being true and 2 being false, I think this is false.
Okay.
Partly because if we're equating the Traveler to the Gardener, there's only one of them.
Yep.
And
that right there is my sole reason for thinking of this as false. If we look at the hierarchy of the because we tried to break it down in like a terms of like a military hierarchy, right? Where like the darkness is at the top of one side, or not the darkness, the witness is at the top of one side. The traveler would be at the top of the other side, and those are like the 2 commanding, top of the top food chain generals or commanders of these armies. So I that one thought there, that is where I think that this is false, because we are very much equating the traveler to the gardener, and there's only one.
The only statement in all of the lore we have ever gone over that suggests that there might be more than one traveler or more than one orb is in Books of Sorrow, where they refer to it as a traveler. However, later in the Books of Sorrow, they refer to it as the traveler. So,
and there are notes in the side scribbled that
this book is full of lies.
Yeah.
But I think that is the only piece of definitive evidence to suggest that there might be more than one, and it's a single word difference.
Yep. Yep. In a single word in a single entry. There's not been a single other entry that has said a traveler. Every single time the traveler has been referred to as itself, as its named self, has been the traveler, not a traveler, implying that there is only one.
So I think that one is unless they pull something crazy on us in one of the expansions or leading up to an expansion, I think that one's pretty definitively false with the info we have now.
I think so too.
Another reason why
the
I
last
think that one is false.
Is look at this, more supporting evidence here. Okay, gotcha. So the last one. The Hive are not the last to be chosen by the light.
So I have a couple of reasons here.
To me, this is a very open-ended one, right? Like, technically, the Hive weren't even the first to be chosen by the they were going to be light bearers. The darkness made it to where they weren't light bearers.
I think it's important to remember, though, that Savathun, having recorded these, or at the time that she recorded these, would not have known that the Hive were originally chosen by the light, because she doesn't know that until we reveal it in the very last mission of the campaign.
That's right. And even then, she questions us like, okay, you want to play a game? Let's play games. Yeah. No, you're right. I didn't even think of it from that point of view.
So to her, the Hive are the second to be chosen by the light. However, I don't think that the Hive are going to be the last. I
don't think so either.
Fully expect, maybe this is optimistic of me, but I fully expect that we are going to see Elixni and Cabal Guardians by the final shape.
I think so too. I truly believe that we're going to see both of those. I think that even Hive Guardians are. Now, again, this is me being optimistic, which if you ask my wife, that never happens. So take this with a grain of salt. I think because we have we as the Guardians have Savathun's body locked up in the tower somewhere.
Yeah.
The Hidden came in, they secured the body, brought it off. There's nothing stopping Amaru from re-resing her, right? Other than unless if Amaru has been cut off or trapped or taken away, just literally getting access to her. Because we assume that in order for a ghost to res their guardian, that they have to be in proximity of the guardian. Like if a guardian dies on Mars, the ghost can't res it on Earth, right? Like there's they have to be in proximity of the guardian, their chosen guardian, in order to resurrect them.
So here's a fun little bit about Hive Guardians. Kind of as an aside, more as supporting evidence, but I thought it was neat. Not all the Hive Guardians are as bad as we may think, or as we may experience in game.
I mean, most of them try to fucking kill me, so.
I mean, yeah. However,
take that.
However, there is at least one example of one that not only does not seem to want to kill a guardian, but has an opportunity to do so and actively refuses the orders of his Hive ghost to do it.
Get the fuck out of here.
So this is in the Lucent Tales book, which comes from the collecting the Lucent Moths. And I'm going to read through this just to give another perspective on Hive Guardians. We all are hating on Crow for sparing the lives of Hive Guardians, but the Hive have their memory
some people
wiped.
Are hating on Crow.
Yeah.
I love Crow. I absolutely adore him now. My wife, on the other hand, is holding him accountable for past atrocities. And
just gotta let it go.
Anyway, go ahead.
Let it go.
Just freaking let it go already. That was like 4 years ago.
But no,
just let it go.
So this comes from Lucent Tales. The entry is called Elok. I'm not sure the pronunciation there, but it goes as such.
Presuming the name of a ghost or a guardian.
Yeah.
So that's not like an English word or a.
It's EULOCH.
EULOCH. Well, you know us. We got to Google this shit.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see here. What are you? A city in Switzerland, apparently.
Well,
but I don't think that's what we're going for. I'm getting nothing.
okay, then I'm going to say it's a name. I'm going to say it's either the name of a ghost or a like Flinch or Amaru or something like that.
That could be. It could be the ghost's name. Because the name of the hive knight, is directly referenced in the code.
Okay, then I'm going to say that's the name of the ghost then.
That would make sense. So and this is being told from that ghost point of view. So, and this is a ghost that has clearly read too much of the Books of Sorrow and is like drunk the Kool-Aid a little bit.
Well, I mean, we know that there are some ghosts out there that are very, they're thinkers. And there are some that have absolutely drunk the Kool-Aid too much of the Books of Sorrow.
So this is definitely one of them. So he says this. Rise again, Luzaku, Ayat. Rise and take back the logic this heretic won in your death. Yes, arm yourself and lay low the guardian scourge. The false inheritor of the light has grown fat on your weakness. To whittle him thin is to make yourself strong. Yes, he lies broken just as the gift mast, but be wary. Yes, there, his ghost awakens him again, and your victory is soured. Mind the bullets, bathe in the metal rain, and be cleansed, not drowned. Lift up your shredder, it is your tutor in studying the shape of your foe. Again he lies in ruin, and you learned well your lesson, seizing the ghost. The logic from this kill will make you strong. With this ghost you crush not only the foe before you, but every foe he could have been. It is the whole worth of him in your hand. Gaze upon it. See how it trembles, so fragile. Hear it describe you in your victory. Take it now in this moment of ultimate truth. Grow drunk on victory, and in revelry know the worth of this thing. Crush the ghost. Why do you linger, Luzaku? What is there to learn with your eyes that you will not learn with your fist? Do you not wish to be something real? Something that lasts forever? Why do you look to me? Children are curious, humans are curious, but the hive are strong. Your understanding comes in vanquishing the thing, so do it. No, it is free. This is what your speculating has wrought, Luzaku. You have failed, and now the tides of the universe will erode you into meaningless dust. All that you could have become have slipped through your fumbling fingers. The guardian will return, flush and hungry from his death. And then you will be dead, Ayat.
So this is interesting. This ghost is talking to him as if the light is given to him to help him do sword logic.
Yeah. This is, like I said, I think this ghost has like bought in to the Books of Sorrow as the correct way and wants the hive to use the light to keep enacting hive sword logic.
That's kind of an interesting thing, right? Like, because we always equated sword logic to being strictly darkness, right? Like the final shape, the final thing, the one last thing, like everything else doesn't matter. It's just that final part that is. But to use the light to enact sword logic.
Well, and I think the important distinction there is that light and darkness, the forces don't care what you do with them. There's no inherent will
They're
for
just
the
tools.
Light to be used in a certain way or the dark to be used in a certain way. And sword logic also doesn't care what you use to win.
Yeah.
By the nature of being the last one standing, you have succeeded in sword logic. By any means necessary.
That's kind of a mindfuck. But that's you're not wrong. Like the light and darkness are just tools. Tools don't care what your philosophies are. Tools don't care what your train of thoughts are. Tools don't care what the end goal is. They're just there. They are just things. Holy shit.
So interestingly enough, we have a ghost who is very much like reading rhetoric out of the books of sorrow.
Just straight up reading it. Just straight up being like, yep, this is law, buddy.
It's just it's a terrible example, but anyone that has a friend who is more religious than you, let's say, and tends to take any event that happens in life and equate it to a proverb or to a hymn or something, that's the same vibe I'm getting here. You've broken him just as the gift mast was broken, like
Dude, he's straight up quoting. I mean, and we talked about this too. The Hive see the books of sorrow as their Bible, as their
absolutely
religious thing. Like that's their that's their beliefs, that's their lives, that's their everything. So for him to quote that isn't like like he's almost quoting it as if saying, look, this is the way I ought. It is because it is. So yeah, that's.
And for this particular ghost who has this particular mindset to be paired with a hive who shows curiosity and appears to look at the ghost of this guardian and recognize that it is the same as its own ghost, and to understand what it would mean to destroy it and actively choose not to,
that's kind of a mind fuck, right? Like
pretty wild.
That's a genuine, like, what in the fuck are we talking about now? Okay. Well, now that we've completely gone off script there and just lost our minds in the weeds, let's roll it back and see what we think here. So these four: myth, the traveler will leave, the traveler will fall, the traveler is not the only one of its kind, the hive are not the last to be chosen by the light.
So for me, traveler will leave is false, traveler will fall is true, traveler is not the only one of its kind is false, and the hive are not the last to be chosen is true.
These four, I 100% agree with you. We did it! Yay, we've got one.
Look at
that. See, we're not completely crazy. Okay, so we'll do the third one now. Altar of reflection, insight. And the four statements are these: Mercury, Io, and Titan are in my care. And this is important to note that this is Savathun saying this. The second one is, the witness returned Mars to your solar system. The third one, the power to move worlds will soon be yours. And the fourth one, the taken king will rise again. So we'll start with the first one. Mercury, Io, and Titan are in my care. Myth?
So my perspective on this is, again, using the ones I think are true to inform me of the ones that would then have to be false.
See, because that's part of the game, right? You can't just look at these as individuals. You have to look at them as part of a whole.
Right. I think this one is false. Mercury, Io, and Titan are in my care. The reasons why I say that, I don't have any concrete lore card to reference for these. Some of this is just kind of like context clues and intuition. If Savathun had the ability to just blip worlds out of existence, I have to think she would have used that to greater effect before now.
Yes and no.
And it seems odd that those worlds. So the scene that we get when those planets disappeared from the director in, I think, Beyond Light, was darkness encroaching in on the director and they had the Black Fleet, the pyramid ships above all of these planets, and we get this view of darkness kind of encroaching in from the edges of the director, and then if I recall correctly, like there was a flash of light coming from the traveler to prevent it from getting all the way to Earth, and when it receded, some of those things were just missing.
Right.
That seems to imply that it was, the powers of the Black Fleet or of darkness in general that was used to move those planets.
And
this
and
one
I guess
and
that's a
the next
question
one are
going to
be difficult.
Right. Like, so I guess we have to kind of figure out what the hell happened to the planets. Like, were they just removed from existence? Were they just removed from this timeline? Were they removed from this solar system? What the hell happened to the 4 planets that disappeared? Mercury, Io, Titan, and Mars disappeared. And what happened to them?
So we don't really know. I think the
Right.
best thing that we have as a comparison would be Asher Mir's experiments on Io with the pyramid ship prior to Io disappearing.
Right.
Asher recognized that, the pyramid ship was a threat, obviously. And so he had the idea of, well, let's just see if we can find something that hurts it. And so he built a number of things. He essentially he fired off, I think, a rocket or something at the ship, and he watched that rocket just kind of blink out of existence before it got to the ship. And
because if anyone's the biggest scientist in the universe, it's Asher Mir.
Yeah, because his initial thought was, well, how did it do that? What just happened? And if I recall correctly,
which to me was kind of cool, because that's a very scientific thing, right? Like, hypothesize. Let's use the scientific theory. Hypothesize something, experiment, observe, record, research. He's very much looking at this from a science point of view. Like, what the hell happens when I fire something at darkness? What happens to the item?
Right.
And in this sense, what happened to it?
Well, in this instance, he fired another, I think it was another rocket, but he had attached some kind of tracker to it. And I'm trying to find the exact lore card where it was talked about.
I know the one you're talking about. I just can't remember what the exact.
I know, I can't remember what the name of it was.
I don't remember if it was off of a gun or off of a armor, or if it was just like a lore entry.
Okay, I found it. So this is from the lore book Duress and Egress, and it is called Asher Observation. So I'm just going to read the whole thing because it's all very interesting, and I think it gives us kind of the best idea-ish of what might have happened to the planets. Man of science though he was, the first thing Asher Mir did was shoot the damn thing. The pyramid hovered inside Io's atmosphere, close enough to be impacted by a projectile flung at sufficient speed. In the time it took Asher to blink twice, he knew the angle of attack and the mass of the projectile. Asher finished building the mounted railgun before his coffee had cooled. He charged the magnetic coils, waited for the wind to die down, and broadsided the ship. He had expected the projectile to hit a kinetic barrier, or, best case scenario, impact the pyramid and cause utterly infinitesimal damage. Instead, at the moment of impact, the projectile stopped existing. Asher's brow furrowed while an irrepressible smile crept over his face. His metal arm clicked and hummed gently of its own accord. This pyramid had the audacity to park in front of his laboratory and pull such a cheap trick. Clearly, it had not thought it would meet Asher Mir. He assembled another missile, one with a detectable radiation signature and a radio signal. He fired it at the pyramid. It similarly disappeared on impact, its signals snuffed out, no longer detectable from Io's surface. Another payload followed, this one a miniature relay station. He routed it through his console and fired. At the moment it touched the pyramid, it transmitted a spike of radiation and radio broadcast. Asher smirked. They were still there, held in the field of the pyramid, visually undetectable, signals squelched, but still physically there. How the pyramid was accomplishing this feat was unimportant at the moment, though his mind flooded with fantasies of zero-point energy. The question that gave him pause was the what. What was the ship doing to the projectiles as they sat suspended in space in the periphery of its loathsome shape? And why?
So the scientist in me is fucking infinitely in love with this entire lore card. Like, not just the lore card, but also Asher Mir. Asher Mir is got to be my one of. I was very sad to learn that he would be one of the ones that was going to be, or his world and everything about him was going to be blipped. So yeah, I hope to see him return, but the scientific portion of this, like, he doesn't even care what he's literally looking this as individual points of data. He doesn't care what happened to him. He doesn't care where they went. He just wanted to know what happens if I shoot something at this thing. And the first, like, the scientist that he shot the damn thing. Like, all right. So he's a guardian first and a scientist second. But or not, I guess he's not a guardian. I guess he's just no, he was a guardian, right?
Yeah, he was under the purview of the Vanguard, so.
Right. Well, because I know he talks about himself as a Jensen scribe. So he definitely has memories or something that he knows of being a Jensen scribe of the Awoken pre Guardian.
I wonder if it's a case where he earned that title after he was resurrected.
It could be. We don't have an active timeline of Asher Mir.
Yeah, we don't really know Asher's story, to be honest. So I'm not sure where.
We know he went to the Pyramidion and he thinks it's a lake, and we made fun of him, and he's like, "No, you idiot." Yeah.
But so what?
I love Asher Mir.
What he's implying here, though, is that the planets, you know, if what happened to these projectiles is the same thing that happened to the planets, which seems likely, because
sure,
in a meta way, like, why even include this information if it's not going to be relevant in some way down the line,
right?
But if
we're to, why give us the readers and players this information if it doesn't matter,
right? So if we're to believe that something similar has happened to the planets, then that would imply that the planets are still physically there. They're just like phased out of our existence, phased out of
I
our
like that
perceivable state.
Basically, they've just been removed from the visible spectrum.
Yeah. Well, not just
not
just the visible spectrum.
Also the physical.
Yes. I think they have been
because the question is their gravity still there?
Well, the one thing that makes me say it's not just a visual thing is the fact that the Glykon drove into the anomaly, the black hole essentially that was left where Mars used to be.
Yep.
So Mars was not physically interactable. Clearly it wasn't visibly there, but its gravity was, or the gravity of the black hole that was left behind was.
And forgive my crude reference here, but we kind of have I say we. My reference for this idea of the planet not being there, but the gravity still being there, is one of the first Star Wars trilogies. When Obi-Wan Kenobi he's got the archives. He's looking at the archives and he's looking for this planet, Camino. and he throws up a 3D representation of it in the chamber with the younglings and with Yoda, and he's like, the planet should be right here, but it's not. And then Yoda asks, why, what makes you believe that it's there? And he's like, well, because gravity is still there. So everything of the stars around that portion and the moons and the planets, because remember, everything with a mass has gravity. You can't have one without the other because they are one is a product of the other. And just because that thing isn't there doesn't mean that gravity is gone. And so that's where I like that.
To build off your theory a little bit, or to further support it, I would assume that if these planets were to physically disappear or be taken elsewhere, that it would mess with the orbits of other things in the vicinity.
That exact point
that
there.
didn't happen when these planets went away.
None of the other planets just completely lost their orbits, and because think of the size of a planet, right? Like it's genuinely kind of hard to imagine the size of a planet. Okay, like I mean, planets are fucking huge, like crazy huge. Like you can fit like 93 million Earths inside of Jupiter, or some crazy number like that. I don't know if that's the real number anyway. But yeah,
ridiculous either way.
So I mean, these things are huge. So because they are so big, they have a huge influence on the gravity of everything around them. So if Mars and its gravity were to just blip out of existence at the same time that Mercury did, we're talking 2 planets on either side of Venus and Earth. Venus and Earth's gravity would be tremendously affected. Like, obviously Jupiter, Saturn, and the Sun are 3 of probably the biggest things that mess with orbits and gravitational pulls, because they are 3 of the biggest things in our solar system. But still, to have an entire planet blip out of existence, we should have seen something. We could have lost our moon or something, right?
Yeah.
But then, these things disappear, as well as 2 moons, Io and Titan, and nothing around them is affected. Nothing around them are changed.
So to piggyback off that a little bit, we know that a power of the darkness removed the planets in some fashion from our solar system. I'm choosing to believe like phased them out of a reality we could interact with, or something along those lines.
Don't worry, I've got another theory now too. Now that you said the way you said it.
However, the gravity remained by nature of our orbits not getting all messed up. And gravity is, we have said in our previous episodes, can only be affected by the light via void.
Ooh.
So darkness could do everything except affect something that is tied to the light, being gravity.
Ooh. So here's my thought on it. When Mars comes back, we see pockets of Mars's past. So could these planets and moons just have been, and for lack of a better term, phased into the future or the past by darkness?
Oh, I like that idea. So actually, another thing, or another way of thinking about that, is this a massive display of the same effect that deep sight has, where that pocket of the universe has been forced to remember a time before that planet existed there?
Yes! Yeah!
I like it.
See? I love it. I fucking love it. When you said it, the way you said it made me think of that idea of like, we're dealing with deep sight, we're dealing with the darkness. We know everything in this expansion has told us that deep sight and darkness and all of that is looking at the memory, making something remember something of itself. It's not time travel. We didn't time travel in the past to Mars. We didn't time travel to the future. When we step inside that one little area, the crop area on Mars, we're not stepping into the past. That's just a section of Mars that is remembering what was there. And so I really, really like that theory. So to me, that leads me to believe that Io, Mercury, and Titan are not in Savathun's care, which then, since we kind of have to deal with the first two sentences with each other, the witness returned Mars to your solar system, I don't think either one of these statements are true.
So then the question becomes, where did Mars come from?
Right.
Because if Savathun...
What forced Mars to come back?
If they're not in Savathun's care, then presumably the witness is the one that blipped them out. So if the witness didn't bring Mars back, what happened to make it come back? Like, did Savathun figure out a way to affect Mars specifically to bring it back?
Was Mars a research on Deep Sight?
Maybe so.
Because we know Savathun was researching everything. She was researching. She was in the archives. She was in the entire Vanguard archives for at least a season. I mean, who knows what you could do in 3 months in a library, right? With the entire history of everything that the Guardians have had. Like,
well, and we know that she was knowledgeable of Deep Sight because she specifically built the whole altar of reflections around it with the intention of us coming to it to reveal her memories back to her.
Yes.
So
okay. So now that we've had this awesome breakthrough that I think is a thing now, the first two statements, Mercury, Io, and Titan are in my care, and the witness returned Mars to your solar system. I think both of those are false.
I think so too. I think the witness affected the planets originally to blip them out, and I think Savathun figured out a way to get Mars to return.
I think you're right. I think you're right on both of those. Which then leads us into statement number 3. The power to move worlds will soon be yours. So that's an interesting one, right? Like, the worlds didn't move.
I mean, this is one of those, like, what's your definition of move?
You see what I'm getting at here? Like, that's what I'm getting at. So, okay. So, if we're going to look at this as a very literal statement, right? And we're going to say that, like, moving is a physical movement of something from one place to another. Okay? We kind of have that ability already with the ability to affect gravity, but we're not affecting things around we're not affecting things with gravity. We are affecting gravitational forces by using the light.
Yeah.
So, the power to move worlds will be yours. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, if the first two we've deemed false, this one has to be true. This one and the next one.
Right. So then why would this be true?
So this is just a lot of intuition and theory crafting, because we don't have anything that points to, like, a Guardian having this ability already or anything close to this ability. The only thing I can point to is that the ability to take is very similar, and I think even Savathun says it, that Oryx's ability to take is a small sliver of what that facet of the darkness can actually do. And we're, discovering more and more powers of the darkness, and we're gaining more and more control over those powers ourselves. Perhaps at some point, our guardians, or guardians in general, learn the ability to take, but not just that, they learn how to control everything, the grander version of taking, quote unquote. That could be applied to a celestial body.
So my thoughts is, define world.
Okay. So
right?
we're
if we think of it now, again, this is just kind of like one of those, like, what if things.
Yeah.
We look at Dr. Seuss and Horton Hears a Who. There's an entire world on the head of that flower.
Yeah. If
The ability to move a world, I mean, a world could be as small as a, like what is a bacteria determined as a world? What is, it's interesting to me to think of it from these ideas of define world. If we're taking Savathun at her word, and she stated the first two as, Mercury, Io, Titan, Mars, all of that. We're taking this as to be a world, as to be a physical celestial body. But what if the power to move worlds is an idea? So if we look at this from the standpoint of history, and we look at it from public speakers, Hitler was able to move the entire world in a direction, not physically, but on a metaphorical sense and on a theological sense, right? Like this idea that his idea was the way that it was supposed to be, and thus the world moved against, like most of the world moved against him to try to change that idea. So what does the power to move worlds actually mean? Could we possibly sway the darkness? Could we and I say sway the darkness, sway the witness to kind of see our point of view, and would that be like a moving worlds type thing?
I like where you're going with it. I don't think the witness is convincible at this point.
I don't think he is either. I think he is so and it's not that I think he's like so full of himself. I think he is so what would you call that? Would it be infallible? Like I don't know. I'm going to use that word because that word sounds cool. Up his own ass. Up his own assable. That's what he is. He's very much about himself. Like he's very much about the darkness, the like the final shape, the final piece, like it, everything to him is like the world, everything was perfect before. Why did you, the traveler, fuck it up? And all the witness is trying to do, and from the witness's point of view, all he is trying to do is set things right. He's trying to make this universe go back to the logic of the final shape, so that way it will do exactly what it was designed to do in the idea of the game of the garden, the flower, right? Like so that's the whole thing of him.
I like this approach, and I think you're onto something with this more kind of not theoretical, but psychological understanding of what a world is. That could literally be us moving the city, like convincing the people of the city to leave. This could go into, if the traveler's gonna fall, if that physical shell is going to fall, the city is what's under it.
It's not very safe. There's going to be a big old crash.
Maybe the city needs to move. I don't know
it's like a bulletproof vest. You can stop the bullet, but you can't stop the inertia of the bullet.
Yeah.
We can stop the traveler from hitting things. You ain't going to stop the science of the inertia of that, and shit's going to get fucked up.
By the way, also
kids,
found
if you get shot with a bulletproof vest, you will have a broken lung. Not a broken lung, a broken rib, and possibly a punctured lung because of said broken rib. You won't have a bullet in you, but it still fucking hurts.
Yeah, still maybe don't try it.
Don't try it.
Another interesting thing, I googled the power to move the world, or power to move a world, and what comes up is like one of the main results is actually from a psychologist by the name of William James, and the statement apparently is the power to move the world is in the subconscious mind.
Boom.
Now that may not be the inspiration for this quote, but it seems pretty
Pretty damn
coincidental
close.
that we would
Pretty.
that would line up pretty well with what we're talking about here. So who knows?
I like this. So I'm gonna take this one. The power to move worlds will be yours soon, as a true, by our definition of what we've just defined it as.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree
So
with
take
that.
The final statement: the Taken King will rise again.
So I think this was true, but probably not in the way that a lot of people think it's true.
And I'm with you on this one. Everything that we've looked at for our evidence for this one, I think is very much tied together. We are 100% together on this one. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the obvious conclusion that people can make is the Taken King will rise again. We know that outside the game, the developers have talked about bringing a raid back. That raid essentially either being King's Fall or Wrath of the Machine.
Because they said they won't bring Crota back.
They said they won't bring Crota back as a raid, and it would be quote unquote one of the big ones. There's only 2 of those left in D1. So you could take that as King's Fall is coming back. Taken King will rise again. There you go. However, I don't think that's necessarily what's happening here. Even if Taken King does come back, I don't think it's referring to a old raid returning. Because in the case of Vault of Glass, they didn't really have a lore reasoning for its return. It just kind of was there.
It just happened to be the Vex season, so they're like, "Oh look, Vex things."
Yeah.
For some Vex reason, Vault of Glass is back.
Like there was no dialogue to try and.
Oh my god!
Did
they really just use for some Vex reason?
For some Vex reason.
In game, as a reason for something happening in game. Damn it. These guys are good.
So I don't expect King's Fall, if and when it returns, would have any kind of in-game lore associated with it. It would just be a, hey, you can play the D1 raid now because video game. So what I think,
sometimes you need that because video game rule.
Yeah, and that's okay. I will enjoy King's Fall just as much as, either way.
100%. Love that raid. Fantastic raid.
So I think the way this is true is the Taken King will rise again. Now again, Savathun is very deliberate. She says the Taken King will rise again, not that Oryx will rise again. The Taken King is a title.
Yeah. And she was offered that title.
Yeah, and in her, I forget if it's a dialogue or a lore card, but she specifically says, "I will not be the Taken Queen."
It's a dialogue. It's one of the times that you visit the altar through the story, through the campaign. You bring the thing to her, and she's like, "I will not. I'm a puppet to no one. Like I'm not gonna play either side. I'm my own person. I want my freedom." So yeah.
But you know who is a very easily manipulated little puppet man, who has been Darkness's #1 fanboy for a long, long time, and has recently talked to the Darkness, and has also recently had some indications that he is back in our solar system, or at least talking to people in our solar system, and that would be Callus.
Boom.
I think it would make.
Can you imagine Callus up on his throne in the end of the Taken King, like that whole arena where we would normally we'd go in there and we'd fight the daughters of the Taking of Oryx, the creators of the Oversouls. We'd kill them. We'd go in and we'd fight Oryx. But now instead of all that, Callus is just chilling there like, "Sup, bitches."
It would be pretty cool, not gonna lie.
I'm not. That would be super awesome. I think that would be super cool to see Callus as a new Taken King.
I think it would be too, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Lore-wise, it does make a lot of sense.
So we know that, like I said, Callus has, for a long, long time, ever since we first were introduced to him, fashioned himself this harbinger of the witness, this harbinger of the end of the universe coming. And
he loves it. He's all about it.
Yeah.
You said it right the first time. He is Darkness's #1 fanboy.
He really is. And it would make a lot of sense for the witness to go, you know what? I need somebody, because Shivu Arath apparently cannot take on her own. The witness to
and this is interesting too. The fact that it would be Callus instead of Zebo Wrath, because Zebo Wrath is very much just kind of like this non-entity, right? Like every time we talk about her, she's just kind of like, oh yeah, that's Zebo Wrath. Yeah, sucks to be her. You know, she's not Oryx, the Taken King. She's not Savathun, the Witch Queen. You know, she's just, oh yeah, that's Savathun, or that's Zebo Wrath rather. Like, yeah, fuck her.
I would really love to see her be front and center for a season, or even honestly for like Lightfall.
It just seems weird to me that she's such a background front character, right? Like,
and that's why
she's one of the sisters, and that's her whole claim to fame.
And that's why I would love to see them make her front and center and just make her this force to be reckoned with. Like, rather than
she's the god of war.
Right.
She is I mean, war is her domain. Like, she even says that to Savathun and Oryx, like, this is war is my domain. Like, you can't stop the great wrath of Xivu Arath. Like, that's why would such a cool thing just kind of be like this background thing?
Well, and maybe that's the thing. Like, she doesn't have any great mystique or scheming. She doesn't write down her adventures. She doesn't care about anything that isn't being on the battlefield slaughtering things. And we haven't met her to see her in that environment yet.
To fight her head on, or to fight her armies, or to see what the wrath of the god of war would be like.
And I'm really hoping that she takes a major part in Lightfall, or in one or multiples of the seasons leading up to it, and gets that time in the sun, gets that in-game telling of, like, this is what the Hive God of War is, be scared.
Yeah.
Because that would be so cool, and such a
look upon me and break yourselves. Yeah, no, that'd be. Yeah, because okay, so as far as interactions with Xivu Arath, we've had Season of the Hunt, which we never directly interacted with her. All we did was kill all of her lieutenants and stuff. Yeah,
who was like spreading the aggressive mind control thing.
The well, not just that, spreading chitin everywhere.
That too.
The hive crap. Which I look at that as like almost the same sense of what is it? The creep from StarCraft.
Yeah.
That's I mean, that's kind of what it is, right? Like, let's be real here. Nobody's really coming up with original ideas. We're all just borrowing. Not to say that I'm not a fan of that, like I said, but anyway. So we dealt with her. We quote unquote dealt with her stuff there, but never really dealt with her. Season of the Lost, at the very end of it, she comes and attacks the ritual, and that's it. Like, yeah, we fought a shit ton of thralls and acolytes and knights, but we weren't. She wasn't unstoppable. We just kind of chewed through them. It took us 15 minutes to chew through them, and then we're like, okay, yeah, ritual happens.
Well, and it wasn't just the ritual. It's implied that every enemy we fought during Season of the Lost to get Techians back, or to go through the wellspring was all, not the wellspring, whatever the event was called for Season of the Lost.
Damn, that's how memorable these things were.
I know. But it's implied that I
can't even remember it.
That all of those
enemies,
astral alignment. Thank you. It's implied that all the enemies in those areas were sent there by Xivu Arath. So like, we were fighting her forces the entire time. But yeah,
she kind of sucks if she's like the god of war, and that's her
but she's not
her
here.
Whole strategy. So
and that's the thing that kind of has me holding out hope. Like, it's not that she's sitting in a ship above the planet sending her little minions down. I think it's implied that she's not here yet, and these are just the the footmen, the front of the line of her army that happened to get here first, that are trying to do her bidding while she's on her way.
Well, because the only other place, did she directly attack Torabottle?
Yes.
So Torabottle is the Cabal homeworld.
Yep.
For those of you that don't know, and not Callus, Keitel mentions that she wants revenge. She wants something to be able to take out Zebo Wrath and reclaim Torabottle, basically. But I'm curious if that world is even. I don't even know if it exists anymore. I don't know if the planet is just gone. Like if it was so devastated that it was gone, or if it's just completely hive overrun and Keitel is thinking, well, maybe we can take it back. So depending on how far away that thing is, I like that idea that you've come up with the, these are just the foot soldiers. She's just sending whatever closest forces she has at the time. She's not directly directing them, right? Because if as the god of war, her entire strategy is build 50 tanks and run them through and see what happens. Yeah, that works in StarCraft, but that doesn't work in real life. I'm just telling you right now, like 50 tanks ain't shit. Like, especially with people with paracausal abilities, we just blip them out of existence if we wanted to. Like,
yeah, I'm hoping that when she gets here, when she's in the Sol system and an active presence, that like shit's gonna get dialed up to 11.
I hope so. I really do. I really hope. And I'm curious if like as far as like an in-game thing, if the legendary campaign was a testing of, will people like a harder experience in game, and can we push it to the limit when Zebo Wrath does show up?
The answer is yes. So Bungie, please give us more.
Abso-fucking-lutely, dude. Like the legendary campaign was fucking tits. Like it was awesome. My wife and I did it in the first. It took us a couple tries on some of them. Like we had to sit back and like take a second to breathe and was like, okay, hold on, let's rethink this from the beginning and figure out, okay, where can I take a defensive stance? Where can I take cover? Where can I attack these guys? Can I continuously attack? Do I need to stay under cover? Do I need to bring a big bad heavy weapon? Can I just float through with my little greens and blue? No, this thing was top notch. I was very impressed with Legendary Campaign. So
yeah, getting back to the Taken King. And will the Taken King rise again? So to reiterate, I am saying true, not the Taken King being Oryx, but the Taken King being Callus in this time round. I'm theorizing he will have assumed that mantle, will have been granted that power through his communion with the darkness, because he did make a sacrifice of many, many scorn to talk to the darkness and commune with it in a very similar fashion to Oryx sacrificing an ogre.
Well, but to be fair, Callus was just trying to lodge a complaint with HR.
I mean, yeah, but Squeaky Wheel.
But I mean, if you go through enough HR, you're gonna get to the head honcho, right? Like that's
right. Squeaky Wheel gets the oil. Like
fuck. Are you fucking serious? God damn it. That is so brilliant. I love it. Squeaky Wheel gets the oil, and Callus just so happened to be the one talking the loudest. Son of a bitch.
Well,
I like it.
And I don't think Shivu has any want to take up the mantle of her brother. She may not.
I don't think so
she
either.
Probably sees herself as already above whatever Oryx was, because she's still alive and he isn't.
Going by sword logic, she is better than him. She has bested him. She has outlasted him. Yeah. Okay, so to go back over these four, Mercury, Io, and Titan are in my care is false.
Yep. False.
Where we believe it's false. The Witness returned Mars to your solar system, we believe is false.
Mm-hmm.
The power to move worlds will soon be yours, we think is true, and we have kind of different, a few different ideas of what the power to move worlds is.
Yep.
And the Taken King will rise again. We think this is true. Specifically the Taken King portion of it, not necessarily Oryx, not necessarily Zebo Wrath or anything, but the Taken King mantle, that title will, that person who takes on that title will rise again.
Yep.
So the last altar we have in the last four sentences we have is the Altar of Reflection Catalyst. No, this isn't something you can just stick in a gun. The pyramid. So here's the 4 here. The pyramid blade is the key to defeating the witness. The next sentence is the witness seeks the final shape, and the final shape is nothing. The third sentence, the last city is not the last city. And the fourth sentence, the witness will build its army on Mars. So we'll start like we did with the other ones. We'll start with the first one. The pyramid blade is the key to defeating the witness. Myth?
So we have to make an assumption here.
What the fuck is the pyramid blade?
And that's kind of where I'm at. If we're assuming that the pyramid blade is the glaive, I don't believe that would be the key to defeating the witness. Like
when you just walk up to him and R1 a bunch,
right?
Like, are we just gonna walk up to the witness and just one, haha, sucks to suck?
But it would also, knowing what the glaive's origins are, it would be strange to me that the witness would go out of its way to repair Rook's glaive.
Yep.
If it was the one thing in the universe that could destroy it, that could destroy.
You would think, right? Like, hey, this is the one thing that can kill me. Maybe don't bring it back. Maybe just, destroy it and call it good. So I've thought of this as another way too. What if the pyramid blade is the upending?
It's not really a pyramid though. The upending.
Right. That's just a thing inside the pyramid. So I'm curious if the pyramid blade, is the pyramid blade referring to the glaive, or is it referring to some sort of weapon, such as the upending?
Now, another way we could take this, however, is that maybe it's not saying the pyramid blade, which assuming that is the glaive. It might not be saying that the glaive is the thing that can kill the witness, but it might be saying studying the glaive will give you the information you need to know how to defeat the witness.
Kind of leaning back to the power to move worlds, right? Like, information is the power. Like, information is the key. By studying this blade, I've given you the tool to study. Oh shit. Okay, I like that one. Shit.
I'm kind of leaning towards this maybe being true.
Okay, so we'll start with that idea. We'll start with it maybe being true. Which that kind of leads us to the next one. The witness seeks the final shape, and the final shape is nothing. I think this is false. We know what the final shape is. The witness knows what the final shape is. The witness does seek the final shape. That portion of it is true, but by adding that second portion, and the final shape is nothing, I think that makes this false, because the final shape is the Vex.
Yep. Or something assuming the same role as the Vex in all of the previous games. Like the final shape is one existence above all others.
And in the books of the Unveiling, that is described as the Vex. Like that is what wins the game that is played every single time. At the end of every single reality and every single universe, there is the Vex. They have because they only have one driving force, and that is exist. And we've talked about this before, and I want to state it again here. It's important that existence is not the same as survival. Existence is purely existing, purely being the only thing that exists at all. Survival implies some sort of struggle, some sort of hey, we're making it to the next day. We're making it. We are continuing on to live on to the next day. Whereas existence is literally that, like you are just exist. The same thing as the idea of a virus, right? Like a virus will, and they talk about this with darkness and stasis. A virus will crank its lethality up to 99% as long as it doesn't kill the host, because the virus doesn't care what it's doing. All it wants to do is exist. All it wants to do is produce. All it wants to do is continue, and it'll do that in any way it sees fit. So I think that second statement of the witness seeks the final shape and the final shape is nothing is false only because of that second half of it.
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength as you there. I think the final shape is not. The final shape is, by the witness's definition, one thing proving its existence above all others, which inherently means that there is something there, not nothing.
Not nothing. So, okay, so that's an interesting thought too, to think this statement, right? If we look at if we look at that idea for this statement with every other statement that we've said, we have to look at the statement as a whole, and we can't look at it with any type of caveats, because this statement, by adding "and the final shape is nothing," is adding a caveat to it, right?
Well, yes, but I do think there's room for interpretation on some of the more open-ended statements, which is mostly what we've done. It's not necessarily that we're saying, we're qualifying an open-ended statement.
Sure. Because that's hard to do, right? Like that's like anything that's left open-ended is done that purposefully. Like,
right.
She's the god of trickery. Like, she's literally trying to trick us. Like, that's her whole, like, deception and trickery. That's her deal. So I think that one is false, because I think there is a physical something that is the final shape. The last city is not the last city.
I see this one as true.
And why?
This one again is open-ended enough that you could argue a couple things here.
Okay.
The last city of what?
Like,
right. If you just want other cities, like, okay, well, we have the Dreaming City. That's another city.
We have the farm.
We have well, I don't know if the farm qualifies as a city per se.
Hey, there were people there, and there were vendors. Tess Eververse was there for a little while. We even had a Cryptarch. It may not be a big city, but they had at least one stoplight.
They had a stoplight and a Family Dollar. What more do you need?
What more do you need? That qualifies. Hey, you laugh. My hometown literally just got a Family Dollar like maybe 5 years ago.
Oh, we
and
did
their first stoplight.
We had a stoplight for a while. We just got a Family Dollar, probably around like 5-6 years ago. Literally last month, across the street from the Family Dollar, a Dollar General was built.
Oh man, big city living there.
I know.
We got options, bitches.
We're
competition.
Spoiled for choice.
Get the hell out of here.
But no. So the last city is not the last city. If we want to take it in the like, are there other cities that exist? Absolutely.
100%.
Dreaming City.
Dreaming City is the first obvious.
New Reese on Europa, the Elixni city.
Yep. Reese Reborn.
Reese Reborn. Thank you.
Yep.
So like, right there are two examples. And I think we could also see this as a bit of a prophecy in that, like,
sure.
If the conclusion is that the Guardians win, or defeat, the conclusion of the light and dark leaves humanity alive and able to thrive, more cities will be built. Like, that will finally give people the ability to start growing outside the walls of the last city.
So here's an interesting thought. Here's an interesting thought. And I don't know why I thought of this until just now, and it may have just been the way you worded it. If, the idea of like, if the Guardians win, if the darkness is defeated, what happens to the light?
I mean,
if the sole purpose of having the light is so that we have something to combat the darkness, would we lose the light if we beat the darkness?
There's a couple different ways we can look at that. I don't think the sole reason we have the light is to beat the darkness. Well, let me qualify. I don't think the sole reason that light exists in the Destiny universe is to combat the darkness. Light and dark are neutral forces.
Right.
However, depending on the outcome of whatever this conflict ends up being, if the witness is no longer around to interfere with things, the traveler or the gardener, assuming it survives the conflict, may no longer deem it necessary to give light to guardians.
To anyone.
To anyone.
Because that's the whole reason why the light joined, was to watch over this paracausal gift that it was giving everyone. This
right.
extra rule that it was creating. And if there's no reason for that rule if there is literally no reason for that rule to exist, why watch over it?
Well, I don't, and again, this is where I'm trying to draw a distinction between us wielding the light as guardians and light existing, because I think there's a difference there. The rule of paracausality, and back in the original Flower games, it wasn't that the winnower was making the universe always end with the Vex. It was that the Vex always ended the universe, without direct interaction,
without any type of influence. That was just the natural cause. That was just the natural, cause. Yeah, no, absolutely. That was the natural cause and effect of each universe. The Vex, at the end of the day, and the day could have been, a trillion billion years, but at the end of the universe, at the end of each flower, the Vex were there, and that was it. They were the final shape.
And the point of adding the rule of paracausality was to allow for a different outcome. And I don't think that has that need for for another rule to change the outcome changes just because the witness disappears.
So that's an interesting thought. Like, if the witness does disappear, or we quote unquote defeat the witness or whatever, if the witness is no longer there to be the winnower, does that negate the idea and purpose of the game of the garden? Like, what does that mean for the power of, or for the gardener?
Here is full on unqualified, pure throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks theory.
Oh, I do love a good shit throwing.
My guess is that Lightfall is going to end with the witness and the gardener destroying each other.
Ooh.
And those
equal
entities
and opposites
will no
infinity
longer
divided
exist.
by zero.
Those entities will no longer exist in the Destiny universe. However, I also think that Guardians will continue to exist, and Guardians will continue to have access to the neutral forces of light and dark through their ghost, and that the final shape expansion is going to be us using those forces to finally change the ending of the story from something other than the Vex.
I like that.
And then who knows
I really
what
like
happens after that.
Because I mean, if the witness and the gardener, if the winnower and the gardener are just all knowing, all being, all everything, they're theoretically the only two that could take each other out. Like, the only thing that could kill one is the other.
Potentially.
That's what I would think. Because if we're just an army, if we're just fodder, like, who cares if we like, who knows if we even have the ability to take them out? Like, that's an interesting thought there.
That's where I'm putting flag in the ground. That is my completely unqualified and unresearched opinion on what the expansion stories are going to end up as.
I like it. I really do like that theory. I am going to sign my name to that flag that is staked in the ground and say, yes, this is our prediction. So I do like the idea of the last city is not the last city. I think that is a true. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the last one is the witness will build its army on Mars.
This one I see as false, not only because that's the only option of it left to us from our previous statements, but it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the closest thing in the universe to Earth, the only other thing is our moon. Like, it could build the army on the moon, but that doesn't really make sense to me either, only because the moon is infinitely smaller. But
But the hive are already
well,
there.
no, maybe. Well, but there is a pyramid ship there,
This is true.
so maybe the moon would be the better option. It's closer. It only takes 4 days to get here from the moon. It takes 4 years to get here from Mars.
Well, and the other thing is that Mars just...
I'd much rather launch a 4-day invasion than a 4-year invasion.
You'd be home a lot quicker.
This is true, right? Like home before dinner.
And in the Destiny timeline, Mars just recently reappeared, and it's crawling with Guardians and Savathun's brood, and some Cabal that are by nature.
Now,
of
there's a question though: are the brood actually crawling around, or is all of that 100% in her throne world?
I guess it's implied that it's all in her throne world. We never actually see any on the surface of Mars, so that's a fair statement.
Did we see any on her ship? Do you remember if in the first in that first mission, the arrival, did we see any did we see any Lucent?
We do fight Lucent brood as we're going through the ship. So
then
I suppose
we could say that they could be on Mars.
But now there are some Cabal there through the Vox Obscura mission that we learn are being directed by a scion who is not exactly loyal, but is using is working with Callus, who's providing supplies and whatnot.
Yep. Because they even say so at the beginning. They're talking about like, how is this place being rebuilt so fast? And Keidel's like, well, if Callus's Leviathan has its cloning facilities up and running, shit, they could restock this place in a day if they wanted to.
Yep.
Which that also implies that the Leviathan's coming back.
Yeah. I think if Callus were to come back as the Taken King, it would not be in the Dreadnought. I think it would be in a altered version of the Leviathan.
I think you're right. I think we would see the Leviathan as a taken space. So, okay, here's another prediction then we're going to make. I think the Taken King will rise again as Callus with the Leviathan as his vessel, and that thing is going to be less about Cabal and more about Taken.
Yeah, I could subscribe to that. But outside of that Cabal station, nothing about what's happening on Mars makes me think the Witness is building an army there. And why would they? When
if he was already that close to fuck with shit,
right? Just
like
they're just gonna build an army in deep space in the pyramids, and then advance the entire army into the system. Not have we're gonna build a couple bases over here on this planet that just reappeared that I didn't really want to reappear based on our previous answers, but
that I took in the first place, that
I
made disappear in the first place. Like,
it just doesn't make sense.
If anything, he'd be building it on Mercury, right? Like Mercury'd be the next closest thing that's invisible. Like that would make more sense because not only he'd have access to the Infinite Forest, so he could build shit in the Infinite Forest across infinite timelines, and presumably feed them back out through the Infinite Forest gateway.
I would think. I mean,
it's just a giant pyramid.
Yeah.
Didn't that just blow your mind, people? The opening to the Infinite Forest is a fucking triangle.
It's the simplest shape and the most structurally sound shape, I believe.
Didn't that just fuck your brains up?
And the Vex are all about, simplicity.
That is true.
But yeah, so I think that one is pretty categorically false.
Okay, so our last four, the Pyramid Blade is the key to the Witness. We're thinking is true. The Witness seeks the final shape, and the final shape is nothing. We're thinking that is false. The last city is the last city. We're thinking that, or is not the last city. We're thinking that is true. And the Witness will build its army on Mars. We're thinking that is false.
Yep.
So there you go. There's our Savathun. We have played your game, and these are the answers we've come up with. And the only one that we have any type of like left and right on is the first four. Osiris is dead, Savathun is dead, the witness birth of darkness, and in the end, your destiny lies outside this solar system. Other than that, the other three seem pretty straightforward. I feel like the other three sets feel pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
but I think we do have to. Every time we look at these, we do have to look at them as a group, right? Because that's the whole. We can't look at these as individual statements. We have to look at them as compared to the other three statements that are given, because that's the nature of the game, right? Like that's the whole point of the game, is two of these are lies, two of these are truths. You can't just be fed a sentence and look at it, oh, well, is this sentence by itself a truth or a lie? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we did it. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, yes.
You got anything crazy to add to any of this, or
any
cool tidbits for our fans?
Let's see. Say nothing in particular tonight to add to this. I think we did some good kind of deep diving into our reasoning behind things.
I think we did.
Yeah, so
you know me, I like looking at things from a scientific point of view, and I like having supporting evidence and all that jazz. I think that's always a nice thing to be able to say, hey, this is why we think the way we think.
Yeah.
Not just throwing words out there to throw words out there. Okay. Well, then with that, I'll start thank yous. Guess who's getting a thank you tonight? Frickin' Savathun.
Again.
Crazy frickin' lady of her trickery and shit. Because without her, we wouldn't even have this game. I'm telling you, Savathun's the greatest thing in the history of video games. She will fuck with your head in the game. She'll fuck with your head out of the game. Savathun, in my opinion, is the greatest thing in any video game ever. Fight me.
It's pretty crazy to think that she thought ahead enough to have pre-recorded all of these for us to find at the altar of reflection, prior to her ever being a light bearer, presumably.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like she took time out of her very busy research how to be a light bearer schedule to leave us fucking riddles. Because why not?
Because for the fun of it. Just to fuck with our heads. Thank you, Savathun, for being the greatest deception artist ever. Myth, you got any thank yous?
Not to any in-game characters.
Oh, okay. I see how it is.
Say, I'm just gonna do the standard thank you, the maybe most important thank you, and that is to everyone that is continuing to listen and put up with our crazy shit.
You're right. They are probably a lot more important than Savathun. Because Savathun won't listen to this. Savathun will just make fun of this.
Right.
Turn it into some sort of riddle game.
Yeah, she'll just make us think we were wrong and right all at the same time.
Fucking Savathun.
Just to mess with us that much more.
Yeah. Yep.
But no, it has been crazy. We hit our 10K all-time downloads last week, which
3 months into the year
is just mind-blowing still.
Right. I'm still kind of riding that high. That's
awesome. And you know, you guys are continuing to support us. We've gone above and beyond 11 now, almost to 12.
Yep.
And it's phenomenal. And thank you all again for being interested, for coming on this journey with us about this crazy awesome video game. And yeah. I have said before, I'm going to say again, you can reach out via Twitter. We have @Myths and Stories, spelt with a Z, the same way that the title of these.
Make sure you add that Z, because a few of us have tried to look us up, and they're like, "We can't find you." Like, it's with a Z. That plays off of my name. Yeah. It's Mythborn and Zorialis, so it's playing off of me.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed any of these, and you feel feel the want to let us know, drop a line if maybe you have some different ideas around some of these two truths and two lies that are the same or different than ours. I would love to hear it. Say definitely
always bring your supporting evidence, because if you just say, well, I think this, we're just going to look at you and laugh.
Say I am always game to have a good lore debate. So if you can keep it civil, love to hear from you guys. But yeah, I think that's it from me.
Alrighty. Well, then, from all of us lore nerds to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next week.